The global population continues to face many challenging situations daily. Climate change, financial losses, fear, anxiety, sickness, death. It may sometimes seem like this season of gloom will never end, and many are losing hope. The future may be daunting, but in the midst of your hopelessness, I can assure you that God, who is the creator of this world, still has the world in the palm of his hands, and for this reason, you can still have hope.
Well, we want to welcome you again to the Wednesday night Bible study for the STONECREST Church of Christ. It's always a plum picking pleasure that's presented to us each Wednesday night to be able to come into your places of abode, your office, your cars, your jobs, wherever you are, as you are viewing and studying with us. And we want you to know how appreciative we are for the privilege and the prerogative that is ours to be able to share with you through the mediums of Facebook and YouTube and our website. Thank you so much for joining us in our study. As I presented to you on last week, beginning in the month of February, we're going to be conducting what I call reverse Bible study. That is, we're going to give you the the privilege to be able to submit questions to us and us be able to answer those questions that you may have concerning anything that I've said during these broadcasts, questions you may have in general about the Bible, or misunderstanding or misinterpretation of it. There are a whole lot of difficult passages in the Bible. On one occasion, Peter himself said about the writings of Paul, our brother Paul has written some things that are just hard to be understood. And so we acknowledge that, we realize that, but we want to give you the opportunity to be able to ask questions about what we believe in congregations of Church of Christ. Why do y'all believe that way? Why don't y'all do this? Why do you all do that? And if you'll submit those questions simply to R.L. Barclay at STONECREST.org, and we'll be happy to address ourselves to any questions and or concerns that you may have concerning anything that we've ever taught, things that we believe, things that we practice, difficult passages in the Bible, passages that seem to be contradictory on the surface. We'll address ourselves to those beginning in the month of February. Please take advantage of the opportunity to be able to submit questions to us. Now, tonight, and for the next couple of weeks, at least through next Wednesday night, I want to talk to you from this notion, an open door. The reason I want to share this with you is simply because there's a whole lot of anxiety and anxiousness concerning the new administration that's coming into office. The recent election between Mr. Trump and Ms. Harris was ugly. It was filled with racism and hatred and vitriol and just plain old muddy stuff. To say embarrassing and humiliating is it was that and some more, and that has left people with a feeling of anxiety, anxiousness, and anxiety, and not only the politics in our country, the condition of our world. Some folk are just fearful for the days to come. And Revelation chapter 4 has a word of comfort and consolation and encouragement that speak to these times. And I want to share this message with you over the next couple of weeks. What I want to do, first of all, is simply read Revelation chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. And then I want to come back, explain them, and then apply them to the situation that we find ourselves in. One of the problems that people have in regards to the book of Revelation is that they say to me oftentimes, that one doesn't make any sense. That one is intimidating. That one is scary. Nobody understands it. It's talking about events that's going to take place at the end of the world. And so, as a result of that, most preachers simply shy away from the book. Most Christians don't read that book because in their mind, it's a book that cannot be understood. So whatever its intended message is doesn't get across to us because of the factors that I just outlined. But I don't believe that's the case. I do believe it is a book that can be understood. In fact, if I could pan this camera around to the books in my room, I know you see a couple of books on the shelf over here, but the reality is uh, there are books all around every wall in my office. In fact, my office does not have enough space for me uh, to display all of the books that I have. In fact, I got another office right next door to this one that have books on the shelves. In fact, there are more than 3,000 volumes of books just in the office. Now, I know you just see, these over here. And I say all that to say that the 3,000 books that I have just on the shelves here, uh, I have more books on the book of Revelation than any of the books in the Bible. And of course, there's a reason for that, and we'll let another time and occasion uh, speak to that. But if there is one book that I've done more study in it than any of the others, it's the book of Revelation. Because as a young boy and as a young undergraduate student in college, I got embarrassed in class because of my ignorance of the book of Revelation. Not only embarrassed, I got humiliated by my stupidity when it came to the book of Revelation. And so since that day in class, I decided that never, ever again would I be embarrassed and humiliation because of my ignorance of the book of Revelation. In fact, any other book in the Bible, but that one was the one that got me exposed, and I said, never again. So the book makes sense, but in order for it to make sense, there are four things that we have to understand about the book, and I'm going to enunciate those four things for you on tonight. I want to explain them, and then we'll be ready to understand the scripture that I'm about to read to you in just a second. Now, I'm going to read the scripture to you, but by the time I finish with the background and keys to understanding the book, we're not going to have time to deal with this text, but I'll come back next Wednesday night and explain the text based upon the four keys and the four principles that I'm going to share with you here on tonight. Revelation chapter 4, beginning at verse number 1. I'm calling these two messages. I think they're going to be two. These two messages, an open door, hope in a time of hopelessness. Let's read the text to you. I have them displayed for you on the screen. Revelation 4:1. John the writer says, after this I looked, and he says, behold, a door was opened in heaven. Now, I have displayed for you on the screen right now an open door. John says that he says after this, and of course we'll explain what that after this means. John said after this I looked up and I saw a door. Oh, here's your shout. And the door was open. And oh my goodness gracious. See, I know why you can't shout like I'm shouting now, because you don't have the information that I have right now. But John says, because of the mess that we found ourselves in at the time he was writing, John assumed, just like his readers assumed, just like the churches he wrote to assumed, that somehow heaven had forgotten about them. that somehow heaven was no longer concerned about their plight that they found themselves in. That somehow heaven had closed its doors. But John said, I looked up and I saw a door, and the door was open in heaven. And then he says, not only was there a door open in heaven, he says, behind those doors came forth a voice. John said, I heard that voice. And he said, the voice, watch this. He said, the voice started talking to him. Woo, my goodness. He said, I thought heaven was silent. I thought heaven didn't care. I thought heaven was not sensitive. Thought heaven was not listening. But he said, all of a sudden, I looked up and I saw a door, and the door was, oh, thank God the door wasn't closed. The door was open in heaven. And from behind the door, he said, I hadn't seen anybody right then, but I heard something. And what I heard was this. I'm just reading the text here. He said, I heard a voice, and the voice started talking to me. And then John said, oh, watch this. He said, the voice was like a trumpet. I'll explain all of this. And the trumpet-like voice said to me, come up here. Wait, where be John? John's on the earth. I'm going to show you next week. John is in the midst of tribulation. He's on an island called Patmos. He's been persecuted. In fact, he's actually died. I'll explain all of that. But watch this. The voice adds, come up here. I will show you things which must be hereafter. And then in Revelation 4:2, John says, immediately, I was in the Spirit. I was in the Spirit. And behold, a throne was set in heaven. And one sat on the throne. Ooh, ain't you glad? Open door. Voice from behind the door saying, come up here. And then he says, immediately, I'm in the Spirit. He said, I saw a throne. And the throne was set in heaven. Ooh, ain't you glad the throne wasn't in Washington, D.C.? Ain't you glad the throne was not in Jerusalem in Israel? Ain't you glad the throne was not in Berlin in Germany? Ain't you glad the throne was not in Tokyo in Japan? Peking in China, or even in Russia? He said the throne was set in heaven. And then he says, oh, gee. He said there was somebody on the throne. I'm sorry, let me just finish reading. He said one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. Oh, here's your shout. And he says, surrounding the throne was a rainbow. And the rainbow was not multicolored. Ooh, you missed your shout right through there. Because when we see a rainbow, we see all kinds of colors. He said it was a rainbow, but there was only one color in it. And that color was emerald. That color was green. Now we read all of that. The door opened in heaven, a trumpet-like voice, somebody sitting on the throne, a rainbow around the throne. Now, what is all this about? Well, see, again, it's not going to make any sense until you understand. Now, you have to follow me very carefully and very closely here. Unless you understand four things about the book of Revelation. This and nothing else in the book is going to make any sense to you. All right. Now, remember my announced subject. My announced subject is an open door. And watch this. And the open door brings us hope in a time of seeming hopelessness. Now, you will be wondering, now, where did I get that message from, the reading of that text from? Well, again, if you're going to understand the book of Revelation, if you're going to understand this message, pardon me, please, there are four things that are necessary to the understanding of the book of Revelation. The first of which is, pardon me, please, the nature of the language. The second thing you have to understand is the timeline. The third thing you have to understand is the historical situation that occasioned the writing of this book. And the fourth thing you have to understand is the audience. To whom was the book written to, and why? All right, now let's take those one by one, explain them so that we can apply Revelation 4, 1 through 3. If you read the book of Revelation, the opening verse of the book says this, the revelation of Jesus Christ. Stop right there. How many times have you heard that this is the revelation of St. John the Divine? The term divine is old English for a theologian. Well, let me correct something right off the bat. This is not St. John's revelation. This is not the revelation of St. John. And this is not the revelation of St. John the Divine, or St. John the Theologian. The very first verse clarifies and refutes all of those false notions about the book of Revelation. This is the revelation of Jesus Christ. Watch this. Which God gave unto him, showed it unto his servants, things which must shortly come to pass. Now, the first thing I have said to you that is necessary for you to understand, if you're going to understand the book of Revelation, is the nature of the language. The first thing I need you to see is that the term itself, the revelation of Jesus Christ, the Greek term for revelation is an original word out of the Greek New Testament called apocalypsis. This is why we call the book of Revelation the apocalypse. Apocalyptic language, apocalyptic literature is a genre, that is, it is a style of writing, it is a style of language that was used in the time of distress and danger. Please keep that in mind. It was the kind of writing, it was the kind of literature, it was the kind of language that people used when they were in distress and when they were in danger. much like the Morse code. It's communication that's used in the time of war. That's when it was originally developed. It's a kind of communication that wants to communicate, watch this, in the face of and in the light of your enemy. You know your enemy is following your communication. You know your enemy is listening to you, but you have to get word out to your troops out in the field. And so a kind of communication was designed and devised called the Morse code, in which you could speak even when your enemy was listening. You knew your enemy was listening, but you still had to communicate to your troops because your troops were oftentimes in enemy territory. And so apocalyptic language and literature and communication is language and communication uh, that was devised when the recipients found themselves in distress and in danger. That ought to raise a red flag to you. John is writing to some people who's in danger of losing their lives because of their commitment to the Christ, to the commitment of the church, to the commitment of the Word of God. So, first of all, the nature of the language uh, is the kind of language that was utilized when people were in danger and in distress. Now, some of you in my listening audience can you've read about slavery. You haven't been a slave. Perhaps your grandparents were, your great grandparents were in this country. And so you will be familiar with a group of songs and poems that we call Negro spirituals. And they were songs that were being sung by the slaves out in the cotton patch, out in the fields, uh, being dehumanized, working for nothing, uh, start working at can't see in the morning, and they work to can't see at night with 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 nothing in return but but hostility and ugliness and racism, working on plantation, working on fields, and got no money for working. And they needed words of hope and words of comfort and words of a consolation and words of encouragement. So they devised songs to sing, to help them make it through the day, to help them make it through the night. But they also designed these songs to communicate. Whenever somebody got ready to escape, they would start a song up in the field, and the song went something like this: down by the riverside. And folk in the field will start singing down by the riverside. But what they were doing was communicating, because there was a slave supervisor, there was a slave master, there was somebody paid by the owner of the slaves with shotguns and whips on horses and on buggies, watching their behavior. While at the same time, they were plotting an escape. But in order to communicate to other slaves in the field that they were planning an escape, they would break out in a song. Down by the riverside. Well, that's coded language too. I'm going to make a break for it. Well, people were working from, watch this, from the field down to the riverside. But when that song was heard down by the riverside, they started another song down by the riverside that said, there's trouble in the air. Oh, y'all ain't feeling it, brother. Watch this. Uh, Somebody in the field was going to plan an escape by way of the river. They start singing down by the riverside. But for the slaves working down by the riverside, uh, they needed to send a message back that said, no, no, um, uh, we got more security here today than we did yesterday, than we did last week. So don't try to make your escape down by the riverside because there is trouble in the air. See, again, these are coded messages uh, intended to communicate because people found themselves in danger and in distress. So, revelation is the kind of language that's being utilized because it's being written to people who are in the midst of distress, in the midst of danger, uh, in the midst of being persecuted for their faith. Okay, that's first thing you need to understand. The second thing to understand is this. When you read Revelation chapter 1, let's look at it again. I put it back on the screen for you. It is a revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must, watch this, shortly come to pass. Now, watch this. This revelation, the message, the events that the message about, we're going to have an immediate consummation. Now, see, that gives a whole lot of people a whole lot of angst and difficulty and confusion because they have gone to the end of the book and they have read what they believe are scenes and descriptions about heaven, about walls of jasper, about streets of gold, uh, about gates to the city, and we have concluded that that is somehow a description of heaven. I don't want to bust anybody's book, but friend, it's not. See, this is why you have to understand the language. And people read these descriptions and assume these are descriptions and images and signs and symbols about heaven that's going to occur at the end of the world. So there are people who have concluded that nothing in the book of Revelation has happened. It's all somehow yet out in the future. When the opening verse says, these things must shortly come to pass. Now, if you are being persecuted, knowing something is going to happen 2,000 years from now, 1,000 years will come, does not bring you any kind of comfort. It doesn't bring you any kind of encouragement. It doesn't bring you any kind of hope. In fact, it works against it. And so, number one, understand that the nature of the language, and the nature of the language is a special kind of genre, a special kind of language that's written to people who found themselves in distress and in danger. And then, secondly, understand that the events of the book are going to shortly come past. And then the third thing that you ought to understand is that the message, in terms of the nature of the language, the message comes to us in forms of signs, of symbols, and of codes. Look again on the screen. Revelation 1b. And he sent, and he, watched the term, signified or signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Okay, let's put it together. First of all, the message, the revelation itself is an uncovering, it is an unveiling, it is a disclosure of instruction, of information that Jesus Christ is going to unveil, he's going to disclose, He's going to instruct. He's going to inform. He's going to teach. Uh, but then watch this. Uh, Whatever he's going to teach and instruct and inform to the readers of his day is going to shortly come pass. But if the message, come here, if the message is to be understood, you have to understand that the message is coded, that the message to the original recipients, to the original audience, and to us is a message that came in signs and in symbols and in code. Okay, hear me clearly. The message is coded. The message comes to us in signs. The message comes to us in symbols. And in order to understand the message has to be decoded. Why? Because you only use the language when there is distress and when there is danger. Listen, you don't get on an airplane and start hollering, Mayday, 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 when everything is sailing nice. Oh, you don't do that because there is no distress. There is no danger. But now, if somehow the plane starts going down, if somehow all of a sudden it loses altitude, see that's for distress signals to be sent to the tower. Now, listen, we're having engine issues here. We need to find a runway here. We need to get this big bird out of the sky and on the land. But if there is no distress, if there is no danger, there is no need for the kind of language. Now, you got to understand it. So Revelation then comes to us in signs and in symbols and in codes. Oh, I want you to watch the next statement that I have on the board. It's apocalyptic literature. Revelation does not mean what it literally says. It means what it means. Say what? Revelation as apocalyptic literature does not mean what it literally says, but it means what it means. I want you to watch the next graphic that I have displayed for you on the screen. And I hope you can see that at home. I just sent you a message by way of signs and of symbols and of codes. And if you look at the B up there, if you look at the I up there, if you look at the 4 down there, so you got to put all that together in order to hear the message. Here's the message. Too wise you are, too wise you be. I see you are too wise for me. Now notice, I didn't have those words written out. I didn't have TOOWISEARA. I didn't write those out. Put them in symbols. Put them in contractions. But now watch this. I decoded them for you. And when I decoded them for you, now you understand the message. Well, watch the next symbol that I have up there. I got a referee with his hands extended. See, perhaps that doesn't mean anything to you tonight because we're not in a football stadium. If we were in a football stadium and your team had just scored a touchdown, it's not official until the referee declares it's official. But If you're in a stadium with 80,000 other people and his microphone is not working, he has to signal to the press box up there that whose microphone is working. He has to signal, listen to my term, he has to signal to the fans in the stadium that your team has just scored either a touchdown or field goal. You see, he communicates by way of sign or signal. If the referee, uh, does that, then the play is over. The pass is incomplete. If the referee does that and points toward your team, that means there's been a holding call. If he, if he does that, that means a personal foul has been committed. And watch this, and he doesn't have to say a word. All he has to do is just signal the infraction. And for those of us sitting in the stadium and are at home watching it, we understand. Watch this. You can be driving in your car, and if you know your tail lights are out and you know there's traffic behind them, you have to signal to them, but you're about to make a move in front of them. Uh, if you want to make a left turn, you roll down your window, because I know I know that you don't have to roll down your windows now. You got a button that you can press the button and your windows go down. But I'm talking to mama now. I'm talking to folk who grew up where you didn't have no button. You had to physically roll down that window, stick your hand out of the window, and it had to be straight. Now, the people behind you knew, and people oncoming traffic knew that you were about to make a left turn. If you're going to make a right turn, you stick that hand straight up in there. I know some young folk watching me tonight have no frame of reference as what I'm talking about. But I'm talking to mama and them now. I'm talking to your mama, and I'm talking to your grandmama. All right? Now, they have a frame of reference. So mama and them, y'all explain it to them. See, these are signs and these are symbols that when you're driving a car and all of your lights are not working, you have to signal the person behind you that you are about to make a move. Well, see, listen, this is nonverbal communication. If I did this to you, listen, I don't need words. I just, yeah. You understand the sign. You understand the symbol. I want you to look at the graphic on the board here. You see a referee, and you see he's throwing out two fingers. Well, for those of us who played baseball, know that the catcher is asking the pitcher to throw a kind of pitch in the air that's going to curve and throw the batter off. Well, I used to be a pitcher. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why that's hard for some of y'all to believe, but when I played Little League baseball, high school baseball, uh, I was the pitcher and I was the shortstop. When I was not playing shortstop, I was pitching. And when the catcher signaled to me, two fingers going down on the inside, he wanted me to throw a curveball toward my left leg. If he signaled a curveball, two fingers, and then he put it toward his right leg, he wanted me to throw it closer to my right leg, which is the right side of the base, than the left side of the base. Well, I understood that. If he put down one finger, he wanted me to throw a fastball. Well, I understand that. Well, why do they do that in baseball? Because they're playing against an opponent who's trying to pick up, trying to steal the signal so they can position themselves in order to catch the ball. Well, see, again, this letter is being written to people who find themselves in distress and in danger. And he has to write in such a way that even if the message even if the letter fell in the hands of the opponents, they would read and wouldn't understand because they didn't understand the signs and the symbols and the codes. Have you not been to a baseball game? And there's a coach on the third baseline who's doing, he's doing all these signals, and the batter looks at it, shakes his head, but the opposing team said, "Oh my goodness, what in the world is he trying to call?" Well, see again, the batter knows that in all of this stuff, at some point in time, the only thing that matters is that one right there. He can do all of that, but if the last thing he does is that, the batter knows what that means. But watch this: the opponent does not. The opposing coach and the opposing bench does not know, because only the coach and the batter knows the signals and the other members on the team. Well, that's kind of what's going on here. Now, I want you to look at one more graphic and I will bid you good night. Remember that I said to you earlier that apocalyptic literature does not mean literally what it says, but it means what it means. Now, I want you to look at the graphic on the screen. How many times have you uttered these words? I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. Now, watch this. A horse is a huge animal. A horse weighs a couple thousand pounds. Now, that's what you said. But what do you mean? I mean, do you literally mean you're going to eat a horse? No, it's not what you literally mean. But watch it. That's what you said. See again, Revelation as apocalyptic literature does not mean literally what it means. So when you're reading in Revelation chapter 12 about a woman on the moon, a pregnant woman, stars above her head, moon under her feet, a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns is trying to get the baby that she just had on the moon. When you read that and you start scratching your head, saying, "Yeah, that don't make no sense." Well, that makes a whole lot of sense if you understand the sign and the symbols and the codes. But if you're trying to understand it in a literal kind of way, it's like trying to understand you're so hungry you can eat a horse. Now, watch this. I know what you said, but I also know what you mean. Okay, this is the last one, and I bid you good night. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you I will. All right, now I want you to watch this. How many times have you heard folks say, "I told you a million times"? I got a calculator on this phone. When somebody says, "If I told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. If I told you once, I've told you a million times," that's what they said. But they ain't been calculating. They ain't been keeping up with all of the times that they told you to do something. In fact, I first heard my mother say this to me. She said, "Now, Richard, I told you 1,000 times. I've heard teachers tell me this in school. Not, Richard, I've told you this before. I done told you this 100 times." I don't call that teacher no lie. Now, I know she had told me more than once, but watch this. But 100 times. Come on. 1,000, come on now. Million times. Somebody gonna keep up with that. It's this. Watch the next statement. When I tripped on stage in front of the entire school, I almost died of embarrassment. Well, you can't die from embarrassment. That's what you said, but that's not what you meant. Watch this. I'm so tired. I think I can sleep for a year. Oh, come on. You ain't going to sleep that long. You ain't going to sleep 365 days. But watch this. When you say that to us in our culture, in our language, listen, we understand. Even though you said that, we know what you meant by that. Well, this is what we've got to do to the book of Revelation. We have to figure out, okay, here is this woman on the moon. The woman is pregnant. You got this dragon standing over her, waiting to devour her as soon as the child was born. The dragon has 7 heads and the dragon has 10 horns. Okay, and what does that mean? All right. Well, see, again, you need to know that has to be decoded. Uh, we need to understand the signs and the symbols and the codes in order to get that message. All right, now I've given you 2 of the 4 keys that you have to use and understand and utilize in order to understand the book of Revelation. And first of all, first key is you got to know that this is a special kind of language. You have to know that there is a timeline attached. These things must shortly come to pass. So the next time you start reading the book of Revelation, at least you got 2. Now I will give you the other 2 on next week, and then we will apply the principles to Revelation chapter 4. Now, don't leave me now. You need to come back next week and let us explain the other 2, and then we'll be ready to understand the message of Revelation chapter 4. All right? Until then, may the Lord of the harvest bless you, and may he bless you real good.